Hi everyone, welcome back to Total War Therapy, and today we're gonna see together every single legendary lord defeat trait in Total War Warhammer 3. It will be a very long video, so don't forget to keep close your favorite coffee, to break up with your girlfriend, and of course to subscribe if you wanna support the channel. Say that, this is my dog eating Italian tomato sauce, and let's begin. Let's start with the Beastmen. If you fight and win against Khazrak the One Eye, you will get a 20% more of chance of intercepting an army using the Underway, the Beast Path, or the Ward routes. Now, you have to consider that when you fight Khazrak, you will probably be playing around the Empire area, where there are no Skaven, the Wood Elves are quite peaceful, and Khazrak is the only relevant Beastman lord. So, and when you fight and win against him, you will probably annihilate the entire faction, so no Beastmen anymore. In this case, this attribute may be not that much helpful, because it's just against Skaven, Wood Elves and Beastmen. But if you want to travel around with that lord, it can be more valuable, of course, and then you will get a 20% more of chance of ambush defense. Even in this case, if you're an expert player, you already know that when over a turn an enemy army just disappear, is probably just ambushing you. That's why, you can bypass and, you may not need this attribute if you already know how the game works. Otherwise, it can be okay. If you fight and win against Taurox the Brass Bull instead, you will get first an additional armor-piercing weapon damage of 20. That is not that much if you consider that it's very hard to take down Taurox with this army of Minotaurs, and then an additional charge bonus of 50%. That may be great if you are, a lord with a chariot, for example, with the Cetra, but in case you are a spellcaster, maybe without mount, this charge bonus will be just not effective at all. When you win against Malagor the Dark Omen, you will get first an additional melee attack of 10 when you fight against Beastmen. That it may be not that helpful because, as I said before, many times in the campaign when you defeat the legendary lord of that faction, you will probably annihilate the entire faction, so you will not need to fight Beastmen anymore. And then a +4 in the leadership of your entire army. This is great because you will need more leadership, over the campaign when you recruit new units that are not that much experienced, for example, and yeah, it's very lovely. Then we get Morgor the Shadowgrave that will grant you, if you defeat him, just a missile resistance of 15%. Now, most of characters, they already have some missile resistance of this percentage, so I don't think he will add that more. It's probably a very weak defeat trait, but this character probably should get an additional quote of love through the time, because yeah, in the current state is not that much funny, and apparently even if you defeat him, you will not get such a reward. Now let's start with Bretonnia and with Repens de Lyonesse. Repens de Lyonesse is the last character, but we don't know if there will be more characters added to Bretonnia, and if you fight and win against her, you will get an additional growth of 5. That is not that much, first because when you have a lord, you probably will try to expand and not just to settle down in a fortress to boost the growth. And then the research rate of 5, that in this case it's great. Of course, depends on the faction. There are factions like Tzeentch or like the Lizardmen that they get many times additional bonus for the research rate, so a 5% is not that much, but other factions that don't have access to this kind of improvement, they may find it very useful. And then you will double your experience gain for the units when you're fighting against Bretonnia. That in this case, if you are in the area of the Grand Desert of the Araby, it may occur. And then we get Alberic the Bordelot, that when you win against him, you will get an additional 15 of melee attack just when you fight at sea. You will be playing in Lustria, so you may need to cross the ocean. In this case, you will have some situation when you can take advantage of this boost. But overall, unless you want to make your character, you know, an assassin or a duelist or something like that. I mean, I don't think it's a very powerful defeat trait. And then we get King Lowen Lion Cur that will grant you a discount of the recruitment cost of 20% for the cavalry units. That honestly, I don't like this kind of bonuses, because you recruit unit just one time, so you don't need to, you know, to get this attribute. And then a charge bonus of +10 that it's a little weak, but I mean, it can make the difference, of course, if you are a character specialized with the charge, so a monster or like a chariot lord. And then we get at the end the Fey Enchantress from Bretonnia. If you fight and win against her, you will get a casualty replenishment rate of 10%. I love the casualty replenish rate. I think that is the most valuable attribute in the game, and the 10% you will get just with you know, a already skilled up hero. That's why, and not even all the heroes. So it's very great for me, and yeah, I would probably go to defeat her just to take this bonus. Now let's talk about the Chaos Dwarfs, and let's start with the Ostrogoth Iron Hand. When you fight and win against him, you will get an effect duration of +10 and an effect range of +10 for the lore of Hashut, Death, Fire and Metal spells. You will understand that this defeat trait may be helpful just if you are playing with a lord that get access to these lores. Otherwise, it's just not worth it. And then you will get a little of spell resistance of 50% that for a character is of arguably usage, but I mean, it may be great, of course, depends on the faction you are fighting with. Against the dwarfs, it's probably not necessary to fight this lord at all. Then we get Drazoat the Asian that in this case you will get an income from province and capital settlement building of +10% for you know, or the faction that it's great. I mean, you will get fire reach, and then the missile resistance of 50%. In this case you can see that is the same of Morgur, but it didn't get the other attribute, so just confirming that I mean, it still need a little of love in the Beastmen roster. In any case, yeah, I would probably not chase Drazoat for his defeat trait, but you know, in case you fight against him, it's a nice reward. And then we get Zatan the Black. If you fight and win against him, you will get a magic item, drop chance of 40%, and I'm smiling because this is great. I love to gather magic items, and now that you can even forge them in most suitable item, I mean, it's an amazing part, an amazing feature of the campaign. So yeah, this is a lord you have to defeat, because you will get you know, access to so many others items that they can be helpful for your characters. So it's like if with a defeated trait you will get you know, plenty of additional bonuses, and then a range of 15% more for your artillery units. In this case, of course, it can be helpful if you are a faction with a lot of artillery pieces. Otherwise, I mean, if you're playing just with Khorne, with the Slaanesh, it's not useful at all. The Demon Prince, the only legendary lord of the Demons of Chaos faction. If you fight and win against him, you will get a +20 of diplomatic relationship with Kislev. Now, the Kislev factions are not so many in the game, and probably, I mean, if you are in the Chaos Wastes, probably you will encounter some of them, but I mean, it's not a very powerful bonus. And then an attrition of less 25% of casualties suffered from all attrition. This may be great because it means that you will feel more free to travel all around the world without worrying about all the attrition that sometimes they can cause severe damage to your army. Now let's start with the Dark Elves. If you win against Rakart, you will get a debuff of 5 of leadership for all the monstrous units in your enemy army. This, I mean, it can be good, but if you think about monstrous units overall, they don't have many problems of leadership. I mean, they mostly cause fear and terror, so it's very rare that they will rout. Okay, so it depends if I'm not sure it's that powerful as a bonus. And then you will get a bonus versus large of 8. In this case it's very weak, even because you know, if it for an infantry unit it would be great, but for a character that has a lot of weapon strength, adding just 8, even if it's you know, a bonus versus anti-large is just not that useful. And then we can move to Lockyer Fellheart. If you defeat this legendary lord, you will get the immunity to storm and reef attrition. If you have to travel a lot around the ocean, this can be very worthy, because you will find yourself a lot in situation when you are, you know, inside a storm, or you know, you're suffering the attrition of the ocean. And if you're playing, depends which faction you're playing with, because if you're playing with the Cathay, at the end you will not move you know, across the ocean from the early to mid campaign, and then you will get directly to, I mean, it would be more helpful in, you know, in Total War Warhammer 2, when you were playing in the ocean, you know, between Ultvan and the Nagaron, Lastria, and so on. In that case, probably it was far more useful. But in Total War Warhammer 3, with the armies that, you know, they are around Lockyer, it may be not that necessary. Then we get Morati. If you defeat her, you will get a reduction of the cost of all the heroes' actions. I think that are all the heroes of the faction, but I'm not sure. That it can be great, depends how much you play with agent. Honestly, in the last times I'm not doing a lot, but there was a time when I was playing a lot with you know, them in campaign, and in that case their operation, their actions cost really a lot. So unless 10%, it may be great. And then a hero self-defense of 10% of chance of wounding aggressors. I mean, in any case, she's helping heroes overall, so depends how much you're using them in the campaign. And then we get Malekith. If you defeat him, you will get a plus income from raiding of 10%. This is for me crazily useless, because I never raid. I think that it's a very overrated. I think no one actually raid, because it's just not worthy for your economy. If you want to attack the settlement, just attack it. In very few situations, like when your enemy is very weak and you have no interest in ravaging his settlement, so you just want to move, and in the moving you want to get some additional money, but 10% in this case is nothing. And then you will get a passive ability of the frenzy, that this may be helpful for your legendary lord, because he will boost a lot its stats. And we get Malus Darkblade. If you fight and win against him, you will get an additional armor piercing weapon damage of 30. That I think it's close to how much you get with Taurox, but you don't get the charge bonus. And as I said, I don't think that this is that much. Even Malus Darkblade can be a very hard opponent to take down, so I would have preferred a better reward. And then we get Khorne Hellebron, I think is the last of Dark Elves, and if you defeat her, you will get a plus 5 on melee attack, not that great, and an armor piercing weapon damage of 20. Overall, of course, you're increasing the stats of your melee specialist, legendary lord, but not that great compared to other powerful defeat traits. Now it's the time to address dwarfs, and if you fight and win against Grombindal, the white dwarf, you will get the causing terror when fighting against the dwarfs. Now, in my opinion, this is a very useless attribute, because, reportedly dwarfs have a very high leadership. There are the slayers that are unbreakable, so, they don't fear terror, we can say. They don't fear monsters. It's very rare to see some of them routing, so yeah, probably not that necessary, but maybe I'm wrong, just tell me in the comments. And then we get Thorgrim Grudgebearer. In this case you will get an additional research rate of 10%. As I said before, depends on the faction you're playing with. If you're playing with Tzeentch, Lizardmen, this is not a powerful attribute, but with other factions that don't have access to boost in the technology, this research rate of 10% is great. And then a reduction, a discount, sorry, of the construction cost of 10% for all the province, for all the buildings in the local province. That I mean, depends if you're using that lord in the region, you know, in just settling down him there while you're building stuff, or you want to move it around, explore and attack it. In that case, I mean, this attribute is not worthy at all. Then we get Belegar Ironhammer, that if you defeat, you will get a plus leadership of 4 and a plus melee attack of 10 during the subterranean intercept battles. Even in this case, depends a lot how you're playing. If you're a faction that doesn't use the underground battles, and you're fighting with faction that don't use either, this defeat trait is I mean, just useless, so you don't need it. It's very niche and situational, so yeah, I would not chase down this lord just for this bonus. Then we get the Torek Ironbrow, that will grant you a magic item drop chance from battle of 15%. That is not that much as Zatan, but Zatan the Black. But I mean, it's great. I like this kind of improvement, as I said before, because in this case you can get plenty of items that will add multiple bonuses and boosts to your character. So it's I mean, it's it's an investment. And then a plus ammo piercing weapon damage of 3 for all the army. That it's great. Honestly, yeah, I think it's a worthy. It's very worthy to fight and win against this lord, because yeah, all your army will be more ammo piercing, and especially in the late campaign this will be great. Then we get Angrim Iron Fist, the lord, the king of the slayers, that is very hard to take down, so I would expect a very big reward for that. But you will get just a melee attack of 5, a little of spell resistance, a little of missile resistance. So I mean, just a little of everything, but not that great as I would have expected for this big, very big legendary lord in the game. And then at the end we get Malachi McCason. If you fight against him, you will get a recruit rank of +3 for the artillery units. That I will already tell you, for me it's just not worthy, because honestly I hate the bonuses of the recruit rank, even with the technology, with some traits of the skill trees of the characters, because at the end you will reach that rank in any case. So why? And the artillery pieces that do plenty of damage will get experience even faster, so you don't need just to give me the 3 more of rank. I mean, I will get them in a couple 3-4 turns anyway. And then the missile strength of more 10% for the entire army. In this case, if you are using a faction that relies a lot on the missile power, that may be great. I mean, a 10% means that your army will get 10% stronger just defeating a lord. So for me, this is very, very great. Now let's have a warm trip in the Grand Cathay, because if you fight and win against Zhao Ming, the Iron Dragon, you will get another magic item drop chance from battle of +10%. That is lower compared to the other legendary lords that we already talked about, but still, I mean, quite helpful, and I mean, I would go for him for that. And then a +5 of armor for all the army, and this is another great stuff. And in the late campaign you need to get more armor. Not in the late campaign, in the early campaign it can be very helpful to get that +5 for all your units that will be probably very weak. So if you get them tougher against not armor piercing damage, it's of course a good point for you. Then we get Yombo the Jade Dragon. If you win against him, you will get a reduction cost of 20% of the Winds of Magic for all the spells. Now this depends depends on the level of the spells that you are using, because if you're using expensive spells, this reduction can be worthy. But if you are, especially in the early campaign, you get access only to spells of, you know, sometimes 4 or 5 winds of magic. I mean, they just reduce a 1, so it's not that much. If you consider that Yombo the Jade Dragon is one of the most powerful legendary lord to fight with in the entire game. And then at the end we get Miao Ying, the Storm Dragon. If you fight and win against her, you will get the Expert Charge Defense. This depends what kind of lord you're using. If it's, I mean, yeah, depends. I mean, if it's a flying character, for example, is not that worthy. But if you are an unmounted character, that can makes the difference. And then a plus melee defense of 3 for the entire army. Even this is very great because you can make your entire army more defensive, more sturdy. So yeah, I mean, if you fight against all the, you know, the 3 dragons in the Grand Cathay, I think that all together you will, I mean, you will, I think, because I'm thinking about when I will play my campaign with the Monkey King, and my first goal will be to defeat every single dragon in the game, and yeah, I'm just thinking of that. It would be very nice. Now it's the time of the WAG, so let's talk about the Greenskins. Let's start with Gorbad Ironclaw, the last legendary lord to be added. If you win against him, you will get an additional recruit rank for all the kinds of units. I already say that I just think that this is not necessary at all, but I mean, Gorbad is already not that good for his campaign, so I would not expect the defeat trait to be great instead. And then the leadership aura sides, there is an increase of 25%. Depends a lot on the lord you're playing with, on the faction. If it's a demonic faction, so you need you know, to cover a bigger area with your leadership aura, in that case it can be useful. But yeah, for example with high elves or dwarfs, I mean, it's definitely not worthy. Then we get Wurzag, the Grid Green Prophet, that you will get an additional physical resistance of 10%. I mean, like the savage orcs. In this case, I think that it may be great. I think overall the characters get at the end some physical resistance, or at least most of them. But it's always nice to get a 10% more, because yeah, all the damage at the end, I mean, not all the damage, because if you fight against other characters that will have probably some magical effect, fire effect, but yeah, I mean, little helpful. Then Azak the Slaughter. If you win against him, you will get a spell resistance of 30%. That, yeah, especially against some spells like the Spirit Leech of the Magic of Death. I mean, a resistance of 30%. It's great if you think that you may be like a dwarf unit that you already get the spell resistance by default. You can really become immune to magic. And then Grimgor Ironhide, that if you fight and win against him, you will get a plus armor of 10 and more weapon damage, armor piercing weapon damage of 20. Not that much if you consider that this is a very tough legendary lord to beat, but yeah, I mean, you will just increase a little your melee stats. And then we get Skarsnik, the main lord of goblins, that you will get an additional ambush success chance of 20% and defense of 20%. I mean, depends, arguably helpful, depends if you're using a lot the ambush. With the Skarsnik you have the option to use it, but I mean, you can, I mean, honestly, it can be, sorry, you're not playing a Skarsnik, so I made a mistake. If you're playing against Skarsnik, you may need to, you know, defend from his ambushes, so it's good to have the plus ambush defense. But yeah, at the same time you can undercover, you can discover and find out his ambushes. But yeah, I think that is worthy just if you don't destroy the faction, so you may need to fight Skarsnik anymore, or, you know, other Skaven Skarsnik. It's a little close to the clan Morse with Quick, so yeah, it depends a lot in which area of the map you are moving towards. And then we get Grom the Paunch as the last Greenskins legendary lord. If you win against him, you will get a plus diplomatic relationship with the high elves, that especially if you want to focus some of your money on the trading on the with the Ultuan, and of course in the very rare circumstance that I mean in the current state of the game that the Ultuan with the flourish, I mean despite all the threats to the island. But yeah, in that case, if you wanted to trade with them, it can be quite helpful. I mean, I'm thinking about playing as Bretonnia, and I want to trade with the high elves that are just, across the sea, and yeah, it may be great. And then the attribute, the causing terror when fighting against Greenskins. When you destroy Grom in the, I mean, if you don't want to travel towards the Badlands, you will not find that many Greenskins, okay? I mean, unless you don't go to the Badlands. So after Grom, and it's not a very hard faction to annihilate. Yeah, I think there are not so many Greenskins that will causing you troubles. So yeah, overall this defeat rate is quite average. I just realized that I'm already without voice, but we are still at the high health, but I hope you're having fun with me. If you fight and win against Imrik of the high health, you will get an additional bonus versus large of 8, that it can be helpful if you want to fight Imrik again with all his dragon, but as I said, 8 more of bonus versus large for a character that will have already, hundreds of weapon strength, armor piercing or not, is not that crazy. And then the fire resistance, this may be great. I mean, if his dragons are using the fire breath on you, or I mean, when you're playing against Imrik, you will be in the in the Darklands where there are a lot of Chaos Dwarfs, so you will have troubles with fire. So it may be helpful, some fire resistance. Then we get Eltarion the Grim, that you will get an additional missile resistance of 10%. I say additional because all the characters already have some kind of missile resistance. And then the attribute the charge defense versus large, that depends on the quality and of the lord that you have. If it's an unmounted on foot soldier, that can be good, but if it's a big monster with a big mass, you don't need this kind of stuff. Then we get Alarielle the Ever Queen. If you fight and win against her, you will get a plus control of 4, that I mean, you will be in Ultuan fighting against her. I don't think that she ever moved out of Ultuan in any campaign. And yeah, so for the Ultuan itself, yeah, if you are if you're a demon, you're happy that the control is not that high. So I don't understand why I should give more control. Probably if you are a high health, that you decided to to rebel and fight against Alarielle. That is actually what I did in my last Tyrion campaign. In that case, a plus control, it can be good for high health, because you want to make safe Ultuan, and plus growth. So the same kind of stuff depends a lot if you wanted to play in a more defensive way, so boosting your own provinces, so if you want to fight around and travel to find the new enemies. And then you will get a chance of winds of magic increasing in strength when changing of 5%. Honestly, I never use this feature in the battle, so I don't know if it's useful or not. You can tell me in the comment. And then we get Teclis. If you win against him, you will get a power reserve capacity of plus 10 for your winds of magic. That if you consider that you are at least in theory destroying you're winning against one of the most powerful mages of the world, this is very, very little. And of course, if you are playing with the Khorne of the Dwarfs, this is just not, you don't care about this. And yeah, it can be not worthy to fight it. And if you're playing with Kairos and you defeat Teclis, even in this way, with Kairos, you have already plenty of winds of magic, so you don't need it. Then we get Alitanar. The Alitanar will get you a reduction of cost for the hero section, and a plus 10% of success. I mean, like for Moratti, this lord, if you win against him, he will get you some boosts for your heroes. So if you're playing with the agents, it can be helpful. Otherwise, absolutely not. Then we get Tyrion, the great high elves, one of the most dangerous duelists in the game, and it will get you a recruit rank of 1. I already say many times how not worthy this bonus is, because I mean rank 1 you will get it in 1 or 2 turns, so with any unit. So why you need that plus more? And then melee attack of 2 for any unit in your army. This can be great. It will be a little more offensive, but yeah, if you think that even I think Miao Ying was giving 3% of defense, so I mean they could have given something more, give a little more to Tyrion, even 3-4%, and maybe recruit rank of plus 2 plus 3. Now it's the turn of Khorne. If you fight and win against Arbal the Undefeated, that is the only lord that is not supposed to be ever defeated, and honestly it's quite hard to, I already said in one of my last long videos, it's crazy to fight against him. So for him I would expect the most powerful of the attribute. When you get a +4 of leadership, that I mean it can be good. There was another legendary lord that we talked before that was given the same, now I don't remember which one, but I mean it's great. I like this kind of attributes because the leadership is very versatile. You may need it in in many situations, especially in the late campaign when there are more monsters that cause terror, cause fear. And then the vigor loss reduction of less 15%. Only 15%, it's a little low for me, but this I mean the vigor in the game is far more important than many things. So having some help with that, it can definitely be a good help, especially in the long fight, when of course your units will get tired more. Then we get Skull Taker, another very strong legendary lord, especially in duel, and you will get, if you win against him, a physical resistance of plus 10%, that it's always great, and then a melee attack of 2 for your entire army. This is great because you can boost your lord, but even help all the army and make all the other units more offensive. So a big up for this defeat trait. And then we get Skarbrand the Exiled. Skarbrand the Exiled is another very strong opponent, and in this case, wow, I would just say wow, this is completely worthy. It's worthy the effort, because if you defeat him, you will get an additional 8% of weapon strength for all the units of the army, and especially if you are playing with an offensive faction, so a lot of weapon strength, you will feel the difference. And then a charge bonus of plus 5. That, I mean, it will make all the army more committed to charge the enemy, and this is always great. So yeah, for me, a very powerful defeat trait. Welcome to the motherland, because now we will talk about Kislev. Let's start with the Constantine. Constantine, defeat him will grant you the flaming attack that I think that we should open a big debate in one of my videos, because even below in the comments many times I see some discussion about if this attribute is helpful or not. In my opinion, not that much, even because there are many units with the fire resistance. So I mean, you are trying to get a bonus when actually is like a weakness in some occasion. But of course you can tell me in the comment why you disagree. And then you will get a plus 6 of leadership when you fight in your own territory. That is good if with that lord you're playing defensively, but in any case, if you're playing defensively, okay, you will already get a boost of leadership, and even with the fortresses and so on. So I don't know if it's that helpful, but of course it can help. Then we get Tsarina Catherine, that you will get of course the frostbite attack. This is a lovely attribute, but yeah, depends the kind of lord that you are playing with. But I mean, in any case, reducing the speed of the enemy, both if you are a missile lord or if you are you know, predator lord and you are, you know, hunting down enemies, it can be worthy in multiple occasions. And then the causing terror when you fight against Kislev, that it may be, I mean, you know, even Kislev, they have a lot of leadership, then they have you know, the blood ability, so when they are wavering, they get unbreakable for a short period of time. So yeah, it can be, you know, not that strong as you may think, but still, I mean, in any case, I love this character and I love to fight against her. Then we get Boris Ursus. When you fight against him, you will get a +8 when you fight against Warriors of Chaos, Demons of Chaos, and Chaos Dwarfs. I don't get this. I mean, Boris is supposed to fight against demons. So if you fight Boris, I mean, you're supposed to be a demons. And this is great because, you know, in the Chaos Wastes, it's full of demons, of chaos-related factions. So you will get, you know, an additional 80% of leadership for the entire army, whatever faction you will fight with. Okay, most of the times. So this is an absurdly helpful attribute, but at the same time, I don't understand by lore. Okay, if you are fighting the, you know, the demon killer, well, you should get a boost against them. I mean, you should get a boost against him, not against the demons, not against the enemies or your enemy. And then at the end we get Mother Ostenkia, that if you fight and win against her, you will get a targeting range of +10% for all the spells. That is always great. Depends, of course, depends on the lore of magic and on the mobility of your you know, character, of your spellcaster. And then a Winds of Magic power reserve capacity of +5 for all the Lord army. I don't get what that's, I mean, yeah, I think just more Winds of Magic of reserve, and then a spell resistance of 5% for all the army. This is another great attribute because, you know, if not for the characters, I think that the spells are more damaging to the units. So having a spell resistance, even if it's quite low, but for the entire army, it can help your army a lot. If you are cold blood and with no feelings, like my former best friend that I just, you know, broke up the friendship a few days ago, and you will sympathize with the Lizardmen. So let's talk about them. The first one is Gorok. If you win against him, you will get the expert charge defense. I already say many times that I mean, depends on the lore or on the lord if this attribute may be helpful or not, and then an additional for all leadership. That is always nice, and especially against the Lizardmen, you need a little of boost because I mean, now Kings apparently they can cause terror if they have a Croxigor unit close. So be very, very careful about your leadership. Then we get Oxiatl. Oxiatl get the Vanguard deployment. First, I think in Total War Warhammer 2, you will get in the Stalk with him. They understood that it was a too much powerful attribute because you can get, you know, someone like Scarbrand and get the, you know, the Stalk, and in that case, I mean, it's just insane. The Vanguard deployment is definitely, for me, not that worthy as an attribute for a lord that, I mean, most of cases should be, you know, very close to the army to, you know, to boost the leadership, to hold for all the buff, so for all the buffs and the boost to the unit. So I just just don't find Oxiatl, even because he's such a good guy. Then Tic Tac Toe, that it's a very weird name. I can never pronounce it. I think someone corrected me in one of the last videos. And you will get an additional movement range of 10% and an additional campaign line of sight of 10%. They are actually, I mean, quite mediocre. The campaign movement range of 10% is actually big, but you know that there is a limit in your campaign that's most of times you actually hit it. So yeah, if in the early campaign fighting him will get you this bonus, in the late campaign it's not necessary anymore. And then the campaign line of sight, yeah, I mean, there are many you know, followers that get you this kind of of help, so you probably don't need that much. Then Tenawin, that as you know, I called him Tenarium for the last 5 years, but apparently is Tenawin. And you will get a casualty captures post-battle of plus 15% that can, can help with your rewards of the end of the battle, if you win, of course. And then the attrition of less 25% for all the attritions. This is great if you want to travel the world, crossing many different kind of weathers and in areas. So yeah, it's always nice to get this kind of things. And then we get Krokgar. With Krokgar, if you defeat him, you will get an additional control of 2 for your local province. That it's helpful just only if you want to play defensively and just rest a little in your settlement, and an additional melee defense of 10 that if you are using that lord as a tank, he can make the difference actually. And then Lord Mazzamundi. Lord Mazzamundi will get you a more leadership or a size of 25%. That it's quite weak, first because as for Teclis, this is one of the greatest spellcaster of all times, and then because there was a character with the same thing with something more, so just a plus leadership or a size. Not that worthy for me, but in any case, especially if you're playing with the Skaven or with the Demons faction, this increase in the aura, so you will need a lord to cover. You can cover a bigger area, a wider area with a single lord. That it can be quite nice, I admit it. Nakai the Wanderer, that I almost forgot. If you defeat him, you will get a bonus versus large of 10 and melee defense of 10. So you will get better in melee. I don't know, it will be a little more sturdy. If you are a dwarf, probably it will make you even more tanky. But otherwise, not that great and not that interesting. Like the character itself, that honestly is the worst campaign I ever played, except Bretonnia, of course. Now, let's address Norsca before the changes that will probably come with, in the next DLC. Let's start with Wulfric the Wanderer. That will give you a bonus versus infantry of 5, quite weak actually, for characters that you will play that, as I said before, they have hundreds of weapon strength, and then charge bonus of 10. That depends in if you're using a lord with a big mount, a big monster, a horse or a chariot. In that case, a 10% can be a quite nice bonus. Otherwise, no. Then we get Trog, that if you fight the king of the monster, you will get an additional weapon strength of 3. That he just what you will get with your skill line, with your skill tree. So nothing that special. And then a bonus versus large of 15. That is a little more, but if we still not make the difference for a character. For a unit, yes, but for a character, definitely no. Now I need a break from my voice, so let's see again in 1 hour. That for you there will be just 5 seconds probably. We got back from the break to address finally Nurgle. Let's start with the Kugat Plague Father. When you win against him, you will get a reduction of the chance of spreading a plague of the 80%. That actually it's very cool, because if you are fighting against Nurgle, you will get a lot of troubles for all the plagues that will affect your army, your campaign, your settlements. So it may be very useful. But when you finally defeat the Nurgle faction, that are not so many all around the map, at least for now, it can lose, some effectiveness, and then a growth of 30%. That is crazy if you consider that other defeat trait were giving you just 5 or 10. So 30% is an actually good boost, but still you have to consider if it's worthy to defeat this very powerful legendary lord just for the defeat trait. Then we get Epidemius, that if you win against him, you get the immune to contact effects. That, believe me, if you are a lord that is playing an important lore over the battlefield, it can be very very important, because you will not be affected by poison and by other stuff that will decrease your stats noticeably. And then a research rate plus of 10, that even here depends on the faction. I already said this, but I will say it again in case you just open the video to see the Nurgle Legendary Lord. Basically, if you play with the faction like Tzeentch and the Lizardmen that get access to bonuses to the technology, is not worthy, but for factions that they cannot boost the technology in any way, this plus 10% can make the difference in your campaign. And as the last, we get Tamurkhan, the Maggot Lord, that if you defeat him, that is probably the most unlikely thing that will happen in every campaign. You will get a character experience gain of 50% for the heroes, that it's nothing, and the local recruitment capacity of +1 and in the local province. Now I remember that back when they introduced Tamurkhan, you were getting like a plus of recruitment capacity for any single heroes. So I'm not sure about how it works now. They change it, but yeah, I think they just wanted to debuff that attribute that was honestly too much overpowered. Now let's talk about the Ogre Kingdoms, and let's start with Grisus Gold Tooth, that get a plus 10% with the trade tariffs. That is not that great, because the trade tariffs is just, most of times a very little part of your total income, and there are very few factions that rely massively on the trade. But you get also an income from old buildings of plus 20%. That if with that lord you're playing defensively, you just want to protect an area, it can help and boost your economics a little, but still quite niche. Then we get Golg Maneater. Yeah, I will never say the name completely, because they already banned a couple of channels of mine, so I don't want it to happen again. And you will get a post-battle chance of stealing a magic item of plus 5%, and a magic item drop chance from battle of 10%. So overall it will boost your chance of getting new items. That I already say it's very, very great, because you can get plenty of tools and new weapons, and yeah, you will get far more bonuses than the defeat trait itself. And at the end we get Scrag the Slaughter, that you get an additional 8 of power reserve capacity of Winds of Magic, and a miscast base chance of less 10%. Now if you're a spellcaster, and you will remember the name of the ability in the skill tree, but you will get enough miscast base chance reduction to be able to use all the overpowered spells with no problem. But in any case, if you are still in the mid campaign, it can be helpful. And then the power reserve capacity of plus 8, it's always great to get more Winds of Magic, even because with 8 you can use a couple of spells that they can be quite powerful over the battlefield. Now let's scavening around a little, because we're gonna start with Ikit Claw, that if you win against him, you will get another research rate of 10%, that yeah, great depending on the faction, and Winds of Magic power reserve capacity of plus 10. That is great, for every spellcaster that you're using. Of course, if you're Lord, or if you have some heroes that are spellcasters. In the case you're like with the Dwarfs or with Khorne, it's just useless. But in any case, a good trait, I can say. And then we get Tzeentch Craventail, when you will get a boost of your speed of 12%. That depends always on the character, but overall it's great. If you have already like a flying lord, that it will get already amongst 80 and 100 of speed, getting a plus 12%, will make this unit one of the fastest in the battlefield. And especially if you have a spellcaster, for example, you can escape a situation very easier, so quite powerful. And then the leadership of plus 4 for the subterranean intercept battles, that is quite niche, depends a lot which faction you are and which factions you are fighting with. Then we get Death Master Tzeentch, that it will boost a little the chance of the hero, and in this case you will get the attribute Stalk. Now, I did remember that, but it's crazy. I love it, because you can get, you know, a Legendary Lord with a very strong Legendary Lord, maybe a greater demon like Scarbrand and Nakari, and with the Stalk. I mean, what are we talking about? You can just, run through the map, completely unseen, and then attack in the middle of the enemy army. So, I mean, it's amazing. I think you should, if you're one of these lords, I suggest you to, run to Grand Cathay to take this attribute, because, it will make the life of all your lords very, very, more funny and easier. Then we get Trot the Unclean, that will add 10% to your hit points. The idea is making you more resilient, and honestly, the hit points, it's the attribute that I overlook the most in this game, but it makes the difference. You will see that some units, they lose health far slower than others, so it's an important thing, but at the same time, not that much interesting. They could have get the regeneration with Throat and Clean. That would have been nice. Then Lord Skrolk, that it's immune to swamp attrition, that they're not, they're quite rare in the map, so not that relevant. And then the less control for the enemy. That if I am in the area of my enemy, I'm probably trying to occupy that area. So giving a less control. And when you fight in the enemy area, you will already cause a break of the control. So this additional damage, just this additional loss of control, is just irrelevant. And then we get Quick Head Taker to close the list, when you will get just a bonus versus infantry of 10. That it's awful, because with characters that have already hundreds of weapon strength, it will not change anything, okay? It's just more confusing, because you will see the bonus in your unit card, and you may think that that lord is more suitable for infantry, when it's not. It just got 10% for defeating Quick Head Taker. Now it's the time for Slaanesh. Of course, it would be very short, but if I would have made this video just a few months later, it would be 3 times longer. Now, Nakari is the only legendary lord of Slaanesh, and if you win against him, you will get a character experience gain of 7. That is great, because it's faction wide, so all the... I don't know if all the units characters, so only lords and heroes, and their skill, their leveling up will be faster, so it's okay. And then the speed of plus 60% granted to all your army. This is crazy, because there are many infantry that could feel not that much affected by that, but cavalry, monsters, flying units, this 66%, it's good. A nice touch. Now let's start with the Empire, that I'm not sure why it's at the bottom of the list, but this is Elspeth von Draken, and when you defeat her, you will get an additional 5% of explosive missile damage for your lord's army. Now, this is good if you have a faction that relies, or an army, at least, that relies a lot on the gunpowder, on the... I don't know if an arrow can be actually explosive, but probably just the units that have already, some explosive damage. But, depends. In some faction it can be a very powerful addition, but in other, no. And then the missile explosion radius of 10%. This is greater, because if you are playing with the mortars and, most of artilleries, of course, this little 10% will cover a bigger area, so if the enemy will try to dodge, like it happens to me all the times, they will get a harder time. Then we get Volkmar the Grim, that when you defeat him you will get an additional 3 of melee attack for all the melee infantry units. That is not that bad. I mean, you will be more offensive. That it's quite peculiar for an Empire faction, and more melee defense, so you will get even a little more sturdy and defensive. Overall, not that not that bad. Yeah, it's not gonna change the way you're gonna play, but it's a nice boost to your army. Then we get Marcus Wolfart, that will grant you some missile resistance of 10%. That, as I said, is not that worthy, because at the end all the characters get some missile resistance, and then the missile strength of 5% to all the army. Even this, like for Elspeth von Dragon, if you rely a lot on the missile, on the gunpowder, yeah, I mean, you will do greater, but I mean, there was a lord that in the defeat trait was giving you the plus 10%, so I mean, probably there are better options. Then Balthasar Gert, that will grant you an additional 6 of armor to all the army. This is good. It's like with the Iron Dragon, that I mean, they are close, so you can fight both of them and then get a plus 10 of armor for all your units. I mean, it's okay. You will be more more tough in case you are surrounded by your units are surrounded by Skaven, or I mean, units with the not armor piercing damage, so it can be good. And then at the end we get the Emperor Karl Franz. If you defeat him, you will get a unit experience gain of just 10%. Not that great, quite weak if you think that is one of the most important character, probably the most important character since he has a Warhammer, one of the most important characters of the lore, so I would expect something more, even more specific to him, like, you cause terror to all the Empire units, something like that. Unfortunately, no. Now it's the turn of the Tom Kings. Let's start with the Arkan the Black. You will get an additional 20 with the diplomatic relationship with Tom Kings. That I mean, honestly, Tom Kings can make diplomacy with almost everyone. There is no one that hates them. Okay, you can be a death faction, a order faction, a destruction faction. In one way or the other, you can try to make some deals with them. So great. And an additional weapon strength of 25% when you're fighting against the vampire counts. Now, since this only affects the character, I don't know if it's that useful, because I mean, then Arkham the Black, I mean, if you're fighting with Arkham the Black, probably the only vampire that you will encounter is Manfred. That, okay, if you're playing with the Repans and then you want to fight, with your horse, you want to charge Manfred on his dragon, I think in any case you will lose the fight, so I mean, why you need this? Then we get High Queen Khalida, that, I mean, you will get more diplomatic relationship with vampire counts, because she's, I don't remember the lore, but I think she's the sister or the cousin of Neferata. That I hope she will come soon to the game, and I hope there will be some kind of relation with her in the game. And then a plus 2 rank for the missile units. Yeah, this is probably the less effective defeated trait we saw today. And then the Grand Hierophant Katep, that it's immune to desert attrition. And this is good if you, I mean, it's funny, because if you play against the Grand Katep, you will be probably in Nagaron when the deserts are not that many. They should have given this attribute more to Khalida, Arkan or Cetra, because in that case you have to travel a lot in the desert, so you may need more this attribute. But yeah, in Nagaron there is just the red desert. Yeah, probably there are some other areas, but it's quite rare. So yeah, I would change that, honestly. But I mean, they just made a little rework, quality of life changes to Tom King, so too late. And then the immune to sensor addition, that, I mean, it's linked to the desert attrition. And then more Winds of Magic, power reserve capacity of +8, that is always nice. And then at the end, Cetra the Unperishable. When you defeat him, you will get, you will give less control to the enemy province when you're stanced, and then an additional charge bonus of 50. Not 50% like it was with the Brass Bull, but just 15, sorry. So, I mean, not that much. It's funny, but okay. Now Tzeentch, and yeah, unfortunately there are just 2, not 3, but I'm waiting for the third. Please put a like if you're waiting for the third too. And let's start with Kairos Fate Weaver. If you defeat him, you will get a Wind's Magic Power Reserve capacity of +5, not that much, but okay, but a spell resistance of 15% to your entire army. That is amazing. It's amazing, okay, especially if you have to fight again against Kairos. You may need this, okay. You will get overwhelmed by all the magic. So great, I like it. Very, very, lore associated to the lore, and I love it. And then the Changeling, that if you defeat him, you will get a post-battle chance of stealing a magic item of +10%. Again, quite great. And an hero action success chance of +5. So, I mean, good for your campaign and good for your tools. Now it's the time of the Vampire Coast. I'm losing the voice just in this moment. And let's start with Aranessa Salt Spite. If you win against her, you will get an additional income from sacking settlement of 15%. That it's very good, especially if you're playing with, like, for example, Scrag, that is quite close to her. Getting this, it will be a lot more of money, especially if you have an economy that relies a lot on, on sacking settlements. Then you will get as a passive ability the regeneration only when you are fighting at sea. That is okay. I like it. I'm completely in for that. Then that area when you will fight against Aranessa is is linked to the sea. You have to cross the ocean or the coast multiple times, so you may find this helpful in many situations. Then we get the Count Noctilus, that you will get an additional 5 on leadership when you fight against the Vampire Coast, that are not that many across the world. I mean, if you go to look for treasures in the sea, okay, but otherwise, if you defeat him, you will not have many troubles with the Vampire Coast anymore. And then leadership +5 when you fight at sea, and this is of course more helpful. It just depends if you are trying to exploring and fight in the sea or just in the land. Then the Luthor Archon, when you get another leadership of +10 when you fight at sea, at least in this case it's 10, and then a spell resistance of 15, but just to the lore, so less helpful. And at the end we get Silostra Darfin, that I would avoid this character, but unfortunately she's in the game. And you will get some Winds of Magic Power Reserve capacity of +10, that's good, and a reduction of the miscast base chance, so in case you're the mid campaign, for your spellcaster will be easier to use the overpowered spells. Now let's talk about the vampires in the land, and let's start with Isabella von Karstein, that if you defeat her you will get the passive ability Regeneration. Now I don't remember if you get it even if she's a hero. I should go to check this, but yeah, in any case, if she's the Lord, but this cannot happen by default in the campaign, getting the regeneration is wow. Is just wow. I mean, if you think some of the most dangerous lords that at least they don't have the regeneration, if they get even that, and then I think every lord can benefit from regeneration, especially in the late campaign when you're using them as tanks and so on. Then we get Helmangorst, that enable poison attack, quite weak, even because there are many lords that already get the poison attacks and you cannot pile them, so it will just in that case, yeah, it would be like not getting anything. And yeah, the poison effect in general can be good, but yeah, depends on the character, and in any case it's not adding that much. Then with the Enriched Kemmler, you're getting a spell resistance of 10%. That, I mean, great, Kairos was giving more, but of course this is just Kemmler. That, by the way, I really like, I mean, it's a long time I'm not playing with him, but I always loved to play with him. But yeah, great, spell resistance. Then Manfred von Karstein, you will get an attrition of 50% or less 50% of casualties suffered from vampire territory attrition. Now, if you are aiming to conquer his lands, you will not take advantage of this attribute for a long time. But yeah, I mean, I don't understand the. I mean, understand that I defeat him, so I will attack, you know, his lands more times, and so I may need this attribute. But I mean, if my goal is to destroy him, then I will not need this anymore. And then at the end we get Vlad von Karstein, that if you defeat him, you will, I mean, in short, you will get, you will resurrect the turn after you die directly. So yeah, this is not bad. I mean, I already have problems with the vampires when you just defeat him and Vlad, you know, comes back from nothing. So giving this attribute to other lords can be quite annoying, but at least he's doing to you. This will be a long one, so let's try to be fast. Let's start with the Be'lakor. Be'lakor of from the faction of the Warriors of Chaos. When you defeat him, that it's very hard to find, but when you defeat him, you will get more Winds of Magic Power Reserve capacity of 5, so 1 spell, more control, more casualty replenishment rate of 5%, that it's always nice, more weapon strength of 5% to all your army. So your army will be for 1/20 stronger. That is great. I mean, I like it. It's quite powerful. Then we get Village the Curseling. When you defeat him, you will get more defense just for your lord, and then more Winds of Magic Power Reserve capacity. So you can use, in this case, 2 more spells. And then with the Festus the Lich Lord, we get more casualty replenishment rate, so good in case you lose, you suffer a lot of casualties. And then a Vigor loss reduction of less 15%. Either there was another lord with the same thing, but yeah, great. I mean, in any case, it's helping the resilience of your army. Then we get the Archon, the Everchosen. If you defeat him, you will get spell resistance and physical resistance of 5% just for your lord, and then a plus melee attack of 2 when you fight against other chaos-related faction, and you know, even Norsca, Beastmen, and so on. So great. I mean, if you fight against Archon, probably you want to fight against other chaos faction, but yeah, honestly, a little melee attack of 2 is not that much if you consider especially that I remember it was Yao Ming that was giving more. I don't remember. Okay, in any case, I mean, there are some lords that are giving the same, but against any other factions. Then we get Azazel, that he will grant 4 more of leadership to the entire army. That this is a good attribute, especially in the late campaign, or in the early campaign, when you know there can be many monsters and beasts terrorizing you. And then the weapon strength of 3% for lords and heroes. That given the fact that they are already big weapon strength, I mean, you know, as a proportion, he can be a nice addition. And then Prince Sigvald the Magnificent, that if you defeat him, you will get the post-battle chance of stealing a magic item of plus 10%, and the physical resistance of 10%. So more items for you, that's always great. And the physical resistance of 10%, honestly, is great. I mean, of course, as a lord in the middle-late campaign, you will fight against many characters with the magical effect, fire effect, but yeah, I mean, physical resistance will protect you from many different not demons, of course, units. So yeah, quite helpful. And then at the end we get Valkia the Bloody, that if you defeat her, you will get a plus melee attack of 4 and more armor piercing weapon damage of 20, quite close to Hellebron, if I remember correctly. And yeah, I mean, your character will get just better at melee, not even that much, but I mean, you know, altogether you can make a nice build. Oh, there was even Colex Sanitar, I'm sorry. And if you destroy him, you will get a bonus versus large of 20. that, I mean, nice, not that much, nothing that impressive. Okay, this is the last faction, and believe me, my throat is burning. Let's start with the Drika. With Drika, you will get a reduction of the control that you will cause to the enemy province, and then the immunity to the Atheloran forest. That it's nice if you want to cross, of course, the Wood Elves territory in, I mean, many times, and you don't want to get affected all of the time. So yeah, I mean, I think it's great. It's at least related to the faction, but of course when you destroy her, there are not many Wood Elves, I mean, at least that close. Then Durtu. With Durtu, you enable flaming attack when fighting against the Wood Elves. This would have been a game changer if would have been for all the army, but since it's just for the Lord, that in some cases it can even just you can already have the flaming attack, not that worthy. And I mean, in any case, the Wood Elves at some point they will take off this weakness. So yeah, no, don't understand. Then the Sisters of the Twilight, when if you defeat them, you will get a casualty replenishment rate of 20%. I want to take a pause to read this again. Casualty replenishment rate of 20% for the Lord army. It means that, I mean, you need a couple of heroes to get a couple of heroes with you know, the casualty replenishment to get the same effect. This is crazy. It's making your army immortal. And if they destroy your army, then you will replenish that, believe me, in just a couple of turns. It's amazing. And then the missile strength of 10%, that I mean, it counts only if you have a range lord that I mean, is not that common in this game, unfortunately, because I would like more of them. And at the end we get Orion, that you will get a plus leadership and a plus melee attack when you fight in the forest battles. Now against Orion you will fight a lot in the forest battle, so it's okay, but a little niche situational. Anyway, very sorry, my voice is broken. Thank you for following me. I hope you had fun. I made this video just because I thought, wow, it would be crazy to make a video about all the defeat trait, since there is not currently one. I mean, there is one, but it's like 3 years ago, so I want to make you know, a new one. So thank you for following me. Don't forget to subscribe, and let's see very, very soon.